This interview is part of the HistoryHeard project. The content of this interview may be used for historical research. However, no part of the video itself may be reproduced without the express written permission of an authorized representative of HistoryHeard. Today is August 5th, 2010 at 11:29 a.m. This is an interview with His Excellency Gintaras Grusas in Berčiūnai, Lithuania. His Excellency was born on September 23, 1961 in Washington, D.C., United States of America. Could you please tell us a little bit about yourself?
I was born, as you said, in the United States. I studied and finished a degree in mathematics and computer science at UCLA in Los Angeles. I worked for 5 years for IBM in the LA area, and then I entered the seminary. I studied for a year in Steubenville, Ohio. I then studied in Rome and was ordained to be a priest of the Archdiocese of Vilnius in Lithuania in 1994. I have been continuing my studies in the meantime. I also worked as the General Secretary for the Lithuanian Bishops' Conference. I was the rector at the Vilnius Seminary for several years, and my first assignment while I was still a deacon was the preparation of Pope John Paul II's visit to Lithuania.
What influenced your decision to become a priest?
I was always wondering what I wanted to do with my life and what God wanted me to do with my life. I was working, as I mentioned, for IBM and technical consulting for sales of large system computers. And in trying to find out what I wanted to do and what God wanted me to do, eventually all the pointers continued to point to serving as a priest, and that's why after all the studies and all the work, I decided to respond to the call. It happened while I was preparing for a promotion and preparing for my interviews for the promotion, and I put together a list of the things that I thought I wanted to do in the future, and when I got done with the list, I realized, despite the fact that they were all very different, they were all pointing to the priesthood. Now, that was when the final decision was made, but the path that I took was for the 10 years previously deciding whether I wanted to respond or not respond to the call that I had felt, probably all the way back to the end of high school.
Thank you. When you were little, why was learning the Lithuanian language and of your Lithuanian roots important to you?
I was raised in a Lithuanian family, and my Lithuanian was truly my mother tongue, because when I was born, my mother didn't speak any English. So my parents had been separated by the war. My father had been picked up by the Germans and then ended up in a displaced persons camp after the war, made his way to the United States. My mother and my sister remained in Lithuania, and for 12 years didn't know who had survived the war. So it was only after that, when through friends of friends they found out that everybody was alive, my father was able to make inroads in trying to get them permission to leave the Soviet Union. And in 1960, when Vice President Nixon visited Khrushchev, as part of a goodwill gesture of that meeting, 200 families were reunited, and my family was amongst them, and I was born a year later. So the family itself was very Lithuanian. We were very involved in the Lithuanian community. I had been taken an active part not only in sports and folk song and dance and the Lithuanian schools to learn the language, but also in the community and the political activities of the community.
Thank you. How has being American Lithuanian affected you?
I think it's been a great blessing. You get to experience and live both cultures at the same time. Um, Here in Lithuania, I'm quickly identified for my American roots. In the United States, as I was going to high school, I was predominantly identified as the Lithuanian. Um, and both cultures have a lot of gifts. Um, the experience of the Lithuanian community in the United States also helped in building up both confidence and skills that I found useful also uh, in my further calling and in my further activities.
When you were living in America, where from and how did you get information about what was happening in Lithuania, especially during the Soviet occupation in Lithuania?
A lot of the information that came out was unofficial. We received the underground publications, which were from especially the underground church that documented what was going on. There was some contact, both official and unofficial, depending on which years we're talking about. But the closer we got to 1990, the more information exchange was taking place, actually. And so we had a lot of information. The fact that my mother had left in 1960 gave me a very real and up-to-date view of what the situation in Lithuania was actually like, and both from her and from my sister I received a lot of information. So there was contact. My first trip to Lithuania was in 1979, the year I graduated high school. So that was a very interesting 5-day tourist visa, but I was able to meet a lot of my relatives for the first time face to face. So there was a fair amount of information exchange, and I had a pretty good picture of what was happening.
What was it like? What was it like going to Lithuania for your first time? And was it what you imagined it to be like, or?
No, I don't think somebody who grew up in the United States at that time could really have an idea of what it was like. Um, and in 5 days, I'm not sure I grasped the full impact of what I had walked into. But yet I did have an idea of what I was going into, and the culture, the communist regime. I think for an American to walk in 1979 and see somebody actually following them brings you back to things you only see in the movies, and having a tail as you drive around the city. Um, it's a very, very strange feeling, but it's something that people here had to live with. And it gave you a real view of what communist occupation was all about. A lot of the people had, and to some degree probably I had the view of the old Lithuania, of independent Lithuania of the 20s, and you arrived and there were modern buildings. Not sure we'd call them modern today. Sort of a 20, 30-year lag of what I grew up with in the United States at the time. But it was a very eventful week, full of experiences and full of a completely different culture.
From your experiences, have you noticed changes in religion, like how it's viewed and practiced?
I think it's changed in the last 20 years. First and foremost, when I arrived, it had just been no longer a punishable offense for children to be catechized. So it became something that was allowed in the full sense of the word, though it would never had been completely forbidden. Priests who prepared children outside of the church building could be punished, and several of them were. So the open freedom, the ability to freely celebrate one's religion has increased. There was a big boom in the early 90s, and now there's a transformation of a more thought through, more personalized response to everyone's religious vocation, to their participation. It's not just we go, there's a group that goes because they're Catholic and they do. on Christmas and Easter, as in other countries, so here. But a lot of youth have responded and have come forth with their own response to their religious experience and become active. We just had the Lithuanian Youth Days here in Panevėžys about a month ago, where we had about 7,000 young people come together for a weekend of festivities and praying. And so that whole area has really developed over the last 20